Welcome, everyone, to The Synthetic Voice, the podcast where we plug in and explore the digital realms and virtual worlds that captivate us. We live and breathe gaming, and we're here to share that passion with you. I'm your host, Emily, and I am absolutely thrilled to have you join us for what promises to be a very special episode.
And I'm John, and it is fantastic to be back here with all of you. Today, we're taking a trip down a very dark, very creepy memory lane. We're unlocking the door to a mansion of memories, cautiously dodging zombies, and let's be honest, we'll probably end up shouting at each other about which key goes where and who gets the last green herb.
That's exactly right. Because today we are dedicating the entire show to a deep, comprehensive look at one of the most important, influential, and downright iconic franchises in the entire history of gaming, the one and only Resident Evil.
That's the one. We're gonna cover it all, from the delightfully clunky tank controls of the 90s to the breathtakingly beautiful and terrifying remakes of today. And of course, we're gonna spend some time speculating wildly about the big one, the upcoming and still incredibly mysterious Resident Evil Requiem.
It is a series that not only defined the survival horror genre for a generation, but has also managed to keep reinventing itself for over 25 years, which is an incredible feat in this industry. So, John, with a legacy this massive, where do we even begin?
There's only one place to start, Emily, at the very beginning. With that chilling, unforgettable, and slightly cheesy title screen voice, Resident Evil. That sound is pure 90s nostalgia for me.
The first Resident Evil, released back in 1996 for the original PlayStation, it was a complete game changer. The fixed camera angles were intentionally disorienting, but in a brilliant way that made every single corner a potential threat. You'd hear a moan from just off screen and have absolutely no idea what was waiting for you, turning simple hallways into tunnels of terror.
Oh, 100%. And the infamous tank controls, which feel so archaic and clunky by today's standards, were a core part of the tension. You couldn't just quickly whip around and pop a headshot. Every single move you made felt deliberate, heavy, and committed. It made you feel incredibly vulnerable, especially when a hunter was lunging at you.
Bite, you felt clumsy and slow in a world of fast monsters. And we absolutely cannot talk about the first game without mentioning the legendary voice acting. You were almost a Jill sandwich. It was so campy and B movie, but it has this undeniable nostalgic charm when you look back on it now.
Don't open that door, or I hope this is not Chris's blood. It's iconic. But beyond that delightful cheese, the atmosphere inside the Spencer mansion was genuinely oppressive and terrifying. You were always fighting the archaic inventory system just as much as you were fighting the zombies. The decision of whether to take an ink ribbon to save or an extra green herb was a legitimate life or death choice.
It really was. That was true survival horror in its purest form. And the lore, my goodness. Finding those scattered files and piecing together the story of Umbrella's horrific experiments was revolutionary.
You know the one I'm going to say, the itchy, tasty file. It still gives me chills.
Yes, The Keeper's Diary, that slow, horrific descent into zombification, told entirely through a diary. It was masterful environmental storytelling. That's the exact moment the game became so much more than just a schlocky zombie game. It had a story, it had a soul.
It absolutely did. And then, just 2 years later, came Resident Evil 2, which I personally think perfected that original formula in every conceivable way. It took the action out of the confined mansion and into the sprawling, burning chaos of Raccoon City.
And specifically, that iconic Raccoon City Police Department. What a setting!
That police station, which was once a museum, is without a doubt one of the best settings in any horror game, ever. The first time you see a licker crawl across that one-way mirror, it is pure, unadulterated nightmare fuel. And the introduction of the two protagonists, the rookie cop Leon Kennedy and the student Claire Redfield, with their interconnected A and B scenarios, It was just so ambitious for its time.
It gave the game an incredible amount of replayability. You had to play it through at least twice to get the full story. Then, with Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, we were introduced to a whole new level of fear, the constant looming threat of this one single, seemingly unstoppable enemy.
Unstoppable is the right word. He was absolutely terrifying. He could follow you through doors, which was a huge deal back then. It broke the established rules of the game world. You'd hear that distorted, guttural stars, and your heart would just plummet into your stomach. It also pushed the series much more towards action, giving Jill the new dodge mechanic. It was less about that slow burn dread and more about high octane desperate panic.
It was such a clear and smart evolution of the formula, raising the stakes and setting the stage for what was to come. That original PlayStation trilogy is just pure lightning in a bottle, a perfect foundation for a legendary franchise.
And that continued evolution, that push towards more action, leads us directly to what many consider the great turning point for the entire franchise, the legendary Resident Evil 4, released in 2005.
Yes, the big one. A game that sent massive shockwaves throughout the entire industry.
For me, and I know this is a hot take, it's not just the best Resident Evil game, but it's one of the best and most important video games ever made, period. Capcom completely and utterly reinvented the wheel. They bravely ditched the fixed camera angles for an over-the-shoulder perspective that was so good it is now the undisputed industry standard for third-person shooters.
Totally. You can draw a direct line from RE4 to so many modern games. It's that influential.
The aiming was precise, the combat was fluid and visceral, and the whole feel of the game was just incredible. That iconic opening sequence in the village where you have to survive an entire horde of villagers, it's a masterclass in tension and action, an all-time great moment in gaming.
It is an undisputed masterpiece of game design and pacing. There's no question about it. But at the time, it also created a huge divide in the community. It was a phenomenal action game, but a lot of the hardcore fans felt it just wasn't a survival horror game anymore. The tension was different. And then the mysterious merchant shows up selling you rocket launchers. What are you buying?
Hey, thank you. Exactly. The tension shifted from being scared of what's around the corner to the stress of being overwhelmed by dozens of enemies at once. It was a completely different but equally valid kind of horror.
Yeah, a different kind for sure. And that heavy action focus really got amplified and put on steroids in the next two mainline games, Resident Evil 5 and the infamous Resident Evil 6.
Right. Resident Evil 5 was a lot of fun, I have to say, especially in co-op. Playing through that story with a friend, taking down massive bioorganic weapons in Africa, it was a great time. But was it scary? Not in the slightest. It felt more like an Indiana Jones adventure that just happened to have zombies. And let's not forget, that's when Chris Redfield got very, very muscular.
He certainly did. He was training for his big moment. And then came Resident Evil 6, which is where he, in a moment of sheer unadulterated absurdity, famously punches a giant boulder into a volcano.
The Boulder Punch. It's a moment that will live in infamy. Look, Resident Evil 6 tried to be everything to everyone, and in doing so, it became nothing. It had 4 separate campaigns trying to cater to fans of action, horror, and espionage, and the result felt like a bloated, incoherent Michael Bay movie. You were doing quick time events every 5 seconds, sliding around on your back shooting. It was just way, way too much.
It completely lost its core identity. The story devolved into this convoluted, nonsensical mess of doppelgangers, amnesia, and new, uninspired viruses. The series was truly at a crossroads. It had become this massive, bombastic, globe-trotting action franchise, and a lot of the old school fans, myself included, felt completely left behind.
It was a dark time for the franchise for sure. We were all left wondering, where could it possibly go from here? Was this the end of Resident Evil as we knew it?
And just when we all thought the series had completely lost its way for good, Capcom did what they do best. They reinvented. In 2017, they took a massive gamble and gave us Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, a true return to form.
What a monumental comeback. It was everything the series needed and more.
It was a total and complete reset. They shifted to the first person perspective, they gave us a brand new protagonist in Ethan Winters, and they told a story that was, at first, completely disconnected from the usual cast and lore. It was so brave, and it was so genuinely scary. The found footage tapes you'd find and play through were a genius way to build unbearable dread before you even had to face the threat yourself.
It was utterly terrifying. The Baker family estate, that felt like the Spencer mansion all over again, but somehow more visceral and intimate because you were seeing it all through your own eyes. I played a large portion of it in VR, and I honestly had to take frequent breaks. The feeling of being trapped in that dilapidated, disgusting house with Jack Baker hunting you, shouting, "Welcome to the family, son." It was one of the most stressful and intense gaming experiences I have ever had in my entire life.
Absolutely. It was a masterclass in modern horror. It brought back the careful resource management, the oppressive claustrophobia, and that feeling of being utterly powerless against a terrifying threat. It proved to the world that the spirit of classic Resident Evil was not only alive, but it was back with a vengeance.
It certainly did, and they managed to build on that incredible new foundation so beautifully with the follow-up, Resident Evil Village, a game that took the horror in a very different direction.
Village was such a clever and brilliant follow up. It smartly kept the first person perspective and Ethan Winters as the protagonist, which we were now invested in, but it massively expanded the scope into this gothic, almost fairy tale like setting. In many ways, it felt like a gigantic love letter to the entire history of the franchise.
Sure, it was like a horror theme park. Each of the domains of the Four Lords felt like it was paying homage to a different subgenre of horror. You had the classic gothic vampire horror in the unforgettable Castle Demetrius.
And then you had the deeply disturbing psychological horror of House Beneviento, which I think we can all agree was a highlight.
Don't you dare even mention that giant, horrifying baby. I'm still not over it. It's seared into my brain forever.
I won't. Then you had the creature feature, almost Lovecraftian horror with Moreau's Reservoir. And then it went full on action blockbuster with Heisenberg's Factory. It was this incredible, varied theme park of horror. Village masterfully managed to balance the new, intimate horror identity of Seven with the action packed legacy of the series in a way that just worked perfectly.
It really, really did. And while this amazing renaissance was happening with the mainline series, Capcom was also working its magic on another front, bringing the classics back to life, the remakes. Starting with the Resident Evil 2 remake in 2019.
Oh, what an absolute masterpiece. I think that might be the best remake of all time.
Right? It's certainly in the conversation. They took the story and the setting that we all loved and completely rebuilt it from the ground up with modern technology and game design sensibilities. The Raccoon City Police Department felt like a real, breathing, terrifying place. And of course, they reimagined the Tyrant as Mr. X.
Those constant thudding footsteps from the floor above you, he was so much scarier than the original Tyrant because he was just always there, this persistent, unkillable threat. You were never, ever safe. It was a brilliant and terrifying evolution of an old idea.
It really was a stroke of genius. Then, the very next year, we got the Resident Evil 3 remake, which continued the trend.
That one was a little bit more divisive, I'd say. I personally really enjoyed it for what it was, a very short, incredibly intense, and highly cinematic action game. Jill's redesign was fantastic, and she felt so capable, but I do understand why some people felt it was too short and linear compared to the original.
Yeah, that's a very fair take. A lot of longtime fans were disappointed that some entire areas from the original game, like the iconic clock tower, were cut. But as a tight, polished action horror package, I thought it was great. And of course, that all culminated in the massive Resident Evil 4 remake last year. And they absolutely knocked it out of the park. It was a monumental achievement.
They really, truly did. The question was, how do you possibly remake a game that so many people already consider to be perfect? And the answer was you make it better in every single way. The combat was improved, the atmosphere was darker, and Ashley's character was made less frustrating and more of a genuine partner to Leon.
And the game-changing addition of the knife parry mechanic just deepened the combat system so much. It added a whole new layer of skill. Plus, they even managed to add more legitimate horror elements back into it. The village at the start feels genuinely creepy again, not just action-packed. These remakes have been a phenomenal way to preserve these classics and introduce a whole new generation of gamers to them.
Which brings us to today, to the present. The mainline series is thriving with the success of 7 and 8. The remakes are all critical and commercial darlings. So the big question is, what comes next? And that, of course, is the biggest mystery in gaming right now. What exactly is Resident Evil Requiem?
Right. The teasers we've gotten so far have been incredibly cryptic and mysterious. We've seen these dark, almost medieval looking European settings, some kind of strange new cult like symbol, but we have no idea about the characters, the story, or the real context of it all. It's a total mystery box.
The name itself is very suggestive. It suggests a finality to something, a mass for the dead. Could this possibly be the end of an era? Perhaps the final chapter of the whole Umbrella spawned storyline that's been running in the background for decades? It feels significant.
That's what I'm thinking as well. Maybe it's finally time for a completely new saga, with new villains and new motivations. For me, my biggest hope and question is about who we're going to play as. Ethan Winters' story is definitively done. So do we get another brand new character, or do they finally bring back one of the classics to lead a mainline game?
That's the million-dollar question. If you had your choice, who would be your pick for the protagonist of Resident Evil 9?
For me, it has to be Jill Valentine. It just has to be. After the fantastic RE3 remake, she's back in the public consciousness, but we haven't seen her in a mainline game, chronologically speaking, in over a decade since her appearance in Resident Evil 5. It is a long past time to see what she's been up to. What about you? Who's your pick?
Oh, I would absolutely love a full modern day game with Jill as the undisputed lead again. That would be a dream come true. But I'm also very curious if they'll stick with the first person view from 7 and 8. Village had a third person mode added later, and all the remakes are third person. It really feels like they could go either way with it. The gameplay style is up in the air.
I have a strong feeling they'll go third person for the next mainline game. It just seems to be where the momentum and the fan demand is right now. And for me, the biggest question of all is about the enemy. Is it another new virus, a mysterious cult, or are they leaning into something genuinely supernatural? Requiem feels like it's leaning into a darker, more serious, almost gothic folk horror vibe, and I am here for it.
I completely agree. Whatever it ends up being, the pressure is on. The series is on such a massive high right now, coming off a string of universally loved hits. Resident Evil Requiem, or whatever it ends up being called, has some enormous zombie stomping shoes to fill. But if there's one thing Capcom has proven over the last 7 or 8 years, it's that they know exactly how to take care of this legendary and beloved franchise.
I have complete faith in them, and I am just so incredibly excited to see what's next. I think we'll be getting a full reveal of the game sometime this summer, and I absolutely cannot wait to get together and break it all down when it drops.
Me too. Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today's show. It has been an absolute blast walking back through the zombie infested, puzzle filled halls of Resident Evil's incredible history. We want to hear from you. What's your favorite game in the series? What's your most memorable moment? Let us know on our social media channels.
Until next time, try not to have any itchy, tasty thoughts, and make sure you've always got a good supply of green herbs. Thanks for listening to The Synthetic Voice.
Goodbye, everyone. Stay safe out there.